Which Side Podcast is a proud member of the Which Side Media Collective.
This week's episode is brought to you by our Amazon affiliate link.
It's super simple how it works. Just head over to whichsidepodcast.com, click through our Amazon link, and anything you purchase, we get a kickback on. One of our listeners told us that what they do is they save the Amazon link as a favorite, so they can just go to their favorites whenever they want to go to Amazon, click it, we get money. So if you're already looking at spending on money on Amazon, hey, help us out. Give us a little kickback.
It doesn't cost you anything extra. It actually takes money away from Amazon and gives it to us, so it's pretty cool.
If you're looking for something to buy on Amazon, I recommend the original Sprout Face and Body Sunscreen. It's really good, it's not greasy, and I like it. You should wear sunscreen if you're going to spend more than 20 minutes outside. It prevents melanoma and other things.
This is episode 133.
Yeah, we have Tim on from Proyecto.
I love this conversation. We really got into like the nitty gritty of like plastic and like the garbage zones, and saving turtles. It's really fun.
It's a good talk.
It's a good talk. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So stick around for that. I really love this one. Do you have any news or events this week?
Pretty soon, the Resistance Ecology, the third annual one, is going to be in Portland at the Portland University. That's June 12th through the 14th, I think. So check that out.
Just Google Resistance Ecology Conference. Get all the details for that. This week for the Slingshot, we're not going to do an event per se, but one of the things the Slingshot has is birthdays. So we're going to do a birthday. We don't usually do birthdays, but this one holds a little special place for me because in 1814, on May 30th, Mikhail Bakhtin was born.
Oh,
I know.
well, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's not to be confused with Bakhtin.
That's true, not to be confused with Bakhtin.
Or
Kropotkin.
I mean, they all have kin and chin, and
yeah.
They're different.
Out of all those three, I prefer Bakhtin. Yeah. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. So
Michael Buchanan.
Michael Buchanan.
Michael Buchanan.
If you like these little tidbits every single week, we pull them out of the Slingshot Personal Organizer. Go get one. Got an online info shop or a local info shop.
Like AK Press.
Yeah. They still need your support.
So help them out.
I sincerely hope you enjoy this episode.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side? Which side are you on? 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 Which side are you on?
So how's your weekend going?
It's pretty good. Pretty good. Just having a kind of a relaxing day today.
Well, what's not kind of about it? What are you doing that's
It was a stressful interview. Just kidding.
Oh God, this is nothing to be stressful about.
I know. I'm just playing. Yeah. No, just hanging out. I'm in Long Beach for a bit at a friend's house, and just having a very mellow day. Slept in nice and late, which is cool, and then played a little guitar and took care of a few emails. Took a walk around town, and now I'm here with y'all.
So how is Long Beach for the vegan scene?
It's pretty good. Being so close to LA, there's a lot of options as far as food. In Long Beach, lots of the restaurants and such have lots of options, and then there's a couple of like all vegan places. There's one I went over for lunch today at a place called Ahimsa Cafe. It's an all vegan cafe, so it's pretty decent. And then all the stores have lots of options and things. So, and there's twice a week there's a local farmers market too. So, pretty easy place for vegans.
How's the activist scene right now?
In Long Beach or just around LA or?
Yeah.
it's solid. I went to Anarchist Book Fair yesterday, so got to see some friends. See, I'm not living around this area right now, so I'm not super tuned into it. But there's quite a few active groups. The Bunny Alliance is still doing a lot of work. Progress for Science. There's Empty Cages LA. There's quite a few groups doing organizing for animal rights stuff. And then it was really cool yesterday to see what some folks are doing in other realms. Lots of Cop Watch. Cop Watch Santa Ana is very strong and active right now. And there's a lot going on. It seems to be a little bit of a maybe kind of a downturn in action and like level of activity as far as the AR stuff goes. But there's if you all have been around too, it kind of comes and goes in waves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You see these times where there's like hundreds of people showing up at demos, and then you see you're happy when 6 show up. So right now it's kind of the like 15 or 20 people is pretty exciting turnout at one of the UCLA vivisectors' houses. I believe that was a demo last week at David Yentz's house, one of the notorious UCLA vivisectors, and I think they had about 15 or so folks, and that's good for a home demo,
Hey, that's great for a home demo.
Yeah,
seriously.
Yeah, definitely. And then what's great about the UCLA ones is that the cops do a lot of the demoing for you. Like they come and create so much ruckus and disturbance in the neighborhood, and if you show up with just half a dozen people, they create such chaos in the neighborhood that it really amplifies the value of the home demo's purpose. So it's the UCLA PD actually help a lot with that.
Half the time it's like 2 to 1 cops to protesters.
They're tripling the numbers already.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you spend most of your time here in the U.S. or in Central America, or what do you do most of the year?
Right now I'm living in Central America most of the year. Costa Rica and Nicaragua, I kind of split my time. I pretty much I haven't been anywhere for longer than 2 weeks in the last about 3 years or so.
Jesus.
Yeah. But I love it. It suits me really well right now. This is the longest I've been staying put. I've been at some really dear friends of mine's place in Long Beach, coming and going between work and music and a few things for activism. I feel like I've been here longer than I've been anywhere for a while, and I get really antsy. I feel really, really, really odd. So I'm pretty homesick right now. But yeah, so home, I consider Costa Rica mostly home, and then I'm branching out and doing a lot more work in Nicaragua, and just really falling in love with some of the areas around there too. So I consider that home now.
You're not from the area though, right? Like you.
Well, I mean, I was born and I grew up in Florida, and then around just before 2000, I moved to Southern California, South Orange County, San Clemente, and then I lived there until about 3 years ago, and then I've been just like crazy traveling.
So what brought you to South America?
Central America, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, that's okay. Sorry about the correction. Yeah, I haven't been south yet. I would love to. I have some really, really cool friends in Brazil and Chile and Argentina that have asked me to come down and be around. So I hope that's in the future. That is in the future. I don't need to hope. It is in the future. But yeah, Central America. I was really drawn to Costa Rica. I was with dating a partner, this woman from Canada, and her and I were really interested in. We were living in a van. We spent about a year traveling up and down the West Coast, living in the back of an old Ford diesel van, and we would go between Vancouver, BC, and like the Southern California area, because when we were down here, I would have some work, and then we would take our time heading back up towards Vancouver and stop and do whatever we wanted along the way. And then we'd get to Vancouver and she'd have work there. So we kind of kept ourselves afloat by bouncing back and forth, and really enjoyed that. And when we had that established, we realized we had this freedom to be able to work sporadically and have all this time, more free time to do things that were more important to us. And so we started looking at where places we might want to live and kind of just dream ideas. And we were both really, really drawn to Central America. And then when we started looking around at it, we found an animal sanctuary in Costa Rica, and we started chatting with the woman who owned it, and she ended up inviting us to come down and help run the sanctuary. So we went down there and did that for the first 3 months. So that's why we ended up right in the spot we ended up in Costa Rica. So it's just we were just poking around and really just kind of dreaming about it, and then we found a spot that needed some help and invited us to come. So we went, and turned out to be one of the best things I've ever done.
So do you kind of want to explain to our listeners what it is that the organization you are with does?
Oh, sure, yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all and talk about it. Thanks for using your voices for what you do to spread these positive ideas like you do. I've listened to a few of your podcasts, and I just wanted to say thanks for what you do and the chance to speak with you all today, for sure.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And then so I call it Proyecto Huella, which is Spanish for Project Footprint. And it's work that I've been doing. It's encompassing stuff that I've been doing most of my adult life. But I'm now that I'm living in Central America, it's a lot easier to do grassroots work down there and build things up without a lot of the things that kind of get in your way bureaucratically and oppressive as far as the oppression in the States and things like that. So it's really building fast, and I'm getting a lot done through it. But it started with working with the animal sanctuary and tuning into our local community in the town we were living in, and just sort of offering anything we could share and help out with, and really believing in the idea of solidarity building rather than charity. It's really important to talk about that, where charity implies a hierarchical structure, and I'm really, really disinterested in having that in my life anymore. Hierarchy is one of the greatest illnesses of our modern culture. And so anyhow, just doing solidarity work, and that led to helping a turtle project where they do poaching intervention and protection for endangered species turtles. And that's in a town called Montezuma in Costa Rica. And working a lot with those groups, taking midnight shifts, doing guarding their hatchery and doing the patrols, and I just completely fell in love with that work. So now that's a huge part of my ongoing project. The goal is to start as many new projects as I can now that I've learned how to manage and run a project like that. We also do I call it coastal rehabilitation, where we're approaching the plastic problem, where plastic is washing up on the beaches there by the hundreds of pounds at a time. There's places where you can go and it's knee deep in plastic if you get into isolated areas. Are you guys okay? Sounds like something just collapsed over there.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, sorry.
Okay, I don't know what I was hearing. It sounded like it sounded like you fell out of your chairs. Just making sure you're okay. Picking up getting the plastic off the beaches, and super inspired by Paul Watson and the rest of the Sea Shepherd work that they all do. Like some incredible people. I worked with some of those folks over the past few years, and now I'm just really inspired to just do that kind of work while developing this project. So Paul's got this article called "A Plastic Sea" that he wrote, I think, in like 2006. And it talks about how the most dangerous element of the plastic debris that's out there are the smaller pieces, because they mimic the food sources for the animals, and it's what the animals are eating today. And so we're working on getting that. Usually that stuff is overlooked when people do the beach cleanups. Usually it's aesthetic value for humans is why people are mainly motivated to do these cleanups. And we're trying to change that and take a more serious approach. And we get the larger stuff out of the way, and then we'll spend 3 more days on the same beach just sifting and sorting out the tiny pieces. And so that's part of the project. And then so that's kind of some of the agendaed work. Like we come in with plans into certain areas with plans to do certain types of work, but then we also stay very open and tune into what the community needs are and what else we can do. I'm very lucky. I have quite a bit of privilege that allows me to work only a little bit. I can live very simply. I live in a tent on the beach when I'm down there. I don't need very much money. I can get by on just a few dollars a week for food and whatever the projects need. So for me, I feel responsible to use that privilege to do what I can. So whenever we have enough help and resources, we do food share programs. In Nicaragua, we can do 30 vegan meals for about $10. So wow. It's really inspiring to make a huge impact like that. We'll usually go out and raise 30 or 40 bucks during the day and then cook 120 meals at night. And yeah, so that's a bit of what we've been up to. Sorry, I'm long-winded.
No, you brought up like so many things that I want to go more into depth on. Okay. Like when you were talking about the plastic, it's one of the things that I don't think a lot of people realize. When they ship plastic to manufacturers, it's shipped in these little teeny pellet forms, about the size of couscous, right? Yeah. And that's what you're talking about, mimics of food sources. When people talk about these garbage patches, it's mostly plastic this size that's everywhere that people don't see. And it's not like in the ocean, it's not always on the top either. It kind of floats down a little bit, sinks down just a little bit. It's fucking devastating. It's
so heartbreaking. It's everywhere. In that article I mentioned, Paul talks about he's been on beaches where he's potentially the only human being that's ever going to be on a beach or a certain ice floe, and he's never been anywhere where he hasn't seen those nurdles, which is one of the names for those little pieces you were talking about, the raw material chunks. And there's accidents all the time where a barrel of those little things gets dropped, and it's not really considered an environmental hazard or like an emergency hazard because it's not the same exactly as an oil spill. Although it does pose an immediate threat. And then, as the plastic is like also on the list of one of the worst ideas we've ever had. Where we are right now, like with people doing stuff like the work that we're doing with our project, the best thing we can do is move it around. We can't get rid of it. Mm-hmm. Like we can change it into other things. We can, if it gets buried, it releases into the ground, into the groundwater, into the rivers, into the ocean. If it stays on the surface, it floats its way back into the ocean and then gets tossed back up on a beach. And like you were saying, it's those nurdles, but it's also, as larger pieces sit on the beach and get broken up. There's right now, it's such a trend in our consumer products here to have like a little plastic pouch with a peel off strip across the top so that we can have a reclosable seal. But you end up with this like 4 or 5 inch, like couple centimeter wide, bright pink, strip of plastic, and that gets thrown away. And if it ends up in the ocean, it's just like you said, it's going to float, a few inches below the surface and dance around like looking like a fish or looking like vegetation. And the animals do eat it, and it's extremely difficult to clean those things up when they're in the water. It's nearly impossible to get those out because you're talking about the corner of a clear plastic bag. So you're talking about like a little 1 inch piece of a transparent clear bag floating in the water. Like, how are we going to get that stuff out of there? But it looks like a jellyfish, so turtles are eating it. It's really heartbreaking. But I really tried to keep the attitude of the definition of something is that it isn't nothing. So when we're dealing with really large struggles or up against really large things, like we shouldn't discourage ourselves because we can only do a little. Why not do a little? So with the plastic, I have to really constantly remind myself of that because it's very, very difficult and very heartbreaking. But we're hauling out. Like when I'm in Costa Rica, we're hauling. If it's just me. In 3 or 4 days, at the end of 3 or 4 days, I'll have a boat pick me up at this remote beach, and it'll be 40 to 50 bags of plastic, and 16 of those bags on my last haul were completely comprised of the little pieces, which if you compare a plastic bag full of plastic bottles, or your sack full of plastic bottles, it's a lot of air. You're getting a lot of good garbage and plastic off the beach, and future danger to the animals and future damage to the environment. You're getting that out. But when you fill a sack up with these tiny pieces, it's your volume of actual plastic you're getting off the beach is times 100, and so we're really, really pleased with being able to see 20, 30 bags of these kinds of little pieces of plastic being hauled off like at least once a week. And the more help we get, the more this builds, the more we'll just be out there doing it. And for me, it puts me on a beach all day long, so I'm happy enough.
What's hard with me, and like I'm glad you brought it up, is like when it comes to like animal rights issues, like I can see it as a winnable game. When it comes to things like hierarchy, I can see that as a winnable thing. When it comes to like plastic, it's just here. We've already fucked up, and it's never going to go away. So it's so daunting, almost unwinnable.
Yeah, I mean, there are things we can do with it. We can. It's super important that we start considering everything that's coming into our lives and what we're doing today. So there's still more of it, even though it's clear how bad of an idea it is. It's still being produced by tons. And so what we can definitely, personally, I carry around a glass bottle. When I take to-go food, I work really hard to have something that I can put it in rather than a throwaway. A single-use, type of throwaway thing. I avoid straws like the plague, things like that, like things we really don't need. So we can make a lot of changes and reduce what we're using, and then, of course, like really, really work on pushing, like when we're in this society up in modern industrial civilization, like we do have these recycling plants, and so we can make sure we're pushing as much of that into there as we can. But yeah, it's really daunting because all everything that's being produced up until right now, this moment, is going to outlive all of us. Mm-hmm. And while it's here, it's just wreaking havoc if it's not releasing xenoestrogens into the environment or other toxic like dioxins and whatever else. If it's not just releasing that into the groundwater, it's choking hazards for sensitive animals, and it's terrible for us as well. It's a brand new substance, and we don't really have like body detox systems to deal with a lot of the things it introduces with us. So it's why we're seeing a lot of problems in human beings as well. So it's really important we work on producing less of it now, and then work on moving it. In Nicaragua, like when we haul the stuff off, it gets burned. Realistically, until we develop something more, which is in the goal, which is in the future, we're going to have better ideas. But for now, when we haul the bags off, they get, we pay to get them hauled away, and they go to the landfill. And what they do at the landfills there is they burn them off. And so you're not getting rid of it. You're putting it into the air, and you're turning it into larger, dense chunks that release into the groundwater. In Costa Rica, it's not burned off; it's just kind of buried and stored. And what we've been doing with ours is we ask them to keep it. We tie it in sacks and seal it up really well. And so we could go to the landfill and get it if there becomes a use for it, or if we find somewhere else we can put it that's better, we can go actually back and get it, the stuff that isn't recyclable. So there are things we can do now, but yeah, it's a tough thing to think about.
I hate those straws and like the lids and everything too, but the one thing that always sets me over the edge is the fucking Kcups that you can get like coffee and like the self-serve coffee cups.
Coffee pods.
It's made out of plastic, but then it's not even recyclable plastic.
Yeah.
It's so fucking horrendous.
And there's a factory somewhere that's, making them, and they're literally designed to be used for 8 minutes and then thrown away. It's just, what are we thinking? Yeah.
And the creator of them is even embarrassed that he created them. He's sad that he did that.
Yeah, he regretted creating the single serve pods.
Wow. Wow, and then you have wow, that's just crazy. Yeah, and you have information you have information like that out there, and but we're still doing it, and I don't know. So I don't know. I really like to keep the idea out there that there is a lot that you can do, and little subtle changes around the house, obviously glass, and try to reuse your storage containers, and avoid to-go food, and avoid anything that's single use. Julia Butterfly Hill is an amazing environmental activist, and she has a lot of really cool things to say about that. So if you look her up and look at things that she's written, she talks about getting single use items out of your life, and So there's a lot we can do, even though the problem is huge and really daunting. I always just want to add like some encouragement in there when we're talking about how huge and daunting it is, because we have these defense mechanisms in our psyche, you know, that like when something is so big and seems so tough, we tend to like either block it out or find reasons that it's okay to just like kind of dodge the issue and just keep things the way they are. And so like we just need to look at it on a smaller scale and realize the little changes we could do.
I love that you brought
just
up.
keep it from being so daunting.
I was going to say, I love that you brought up Julia Butterfly. I haven't heard that name in years.
She's one of my. She's an advisor of mine. Whenever I at least a couple times a year. We don't talk super much right now, but like when I have like a really tough question or situation or huge choice to make or something, she's still there for me as a friend. Like to be like, what should I do? And she was one of the folks who really inspired me to make the move, like living out of the United States. And she said, you deserve to live somewhere that is closer to what you're fighting for. And I think everyone should really look at that and think about that idea. You know, like it's not that we're abandoning the United States and we're not abandoning this landmass and the people who are here, because, you know, there's work to be done here and folks need help and, you know, the place needs our support as well. But, you know, leaving it to go somewhere else and do the same work, you know, it's of equal value. It's not less value just because it's somewhere else and different people. And, but then for me, I get to live amongst a forest that's intact and an ocean that feels healing and doesn't give me a sinus infection. And, you know, it's cool. So yeah, Julia's amazing. She's one of the greatest people I've ever met.
How did you guys get acquainted? Like, how did you create that friendship?
We became really good friends at an action in Los Angeles, called the South Central Farm. Was a community garden. I don't know. Have you guys heard of that before?
Was there a documentary based on it?
Yeah, I think. Well, there's a few. I think the biggest one was called The Garden.
Yeah. I know about that.
Yeah, that was about. It was a few years back in South Central LA, and I was living in South Orange County at the time, and I was only involved with the garden in the last 28 days of it existing. I had never heard of it before, and I'm really sad about that. I would have loved to have seen it and been a part of supporting it while it was in its full bloom, but no pun intended. But like when they put a call out for actions and activists to help, because they were looking at some potential like need for civil disobedience, and they had been put under forced eviction notice, which was a step past eviction notice. That's when I heard about it. So I went to bring food the first time I went there. And then the second time I went, I had time to stay a couple days, so I volunteered to do some security. And they were really savvy about like who could come in and who, like at night, and who you had to be vouched for by a few different people. And it's kind of a funny story. I got vouched for to come into one of this inner like security meetings because when I showed up, I was wearing a Sea Shepherd beanie, which you can buy off their website. You know, like. Anyone can have one, but they didn't know. A couple of the organizers didn't know that, and this one guy, we became very good friends afterwards, and we became partners in some of the actions we did. But he told me the reason he vouched for me to come in because I was wearing the beanie, because he figured if I had one, I was down. And then like this other woman was like, I have a good feeling. I'll second. So you had to have two people, and so that's how I got in to help a little more closely with that struggle, and was just because he didn't understand that like anyone could buy this Sea Shepherd beanie, but anyhow, it got me in, and it wasn't a mistake on their part. I was trustworthy, and so I was helping with the lockdown plans for some of the civil disobedience and some of the security ideas and things like that. And Julia was there doing a tree sit. She was on the property up in one of the. I think she was up in one of the huge fig trees that was on the property doing a tree sit for helping out with the publicity and everything. And we just started. Yeah, I brought her some. I knew she was into a few things for a company I work for. So I brought her some healthy green powder products, and she was really stoked about that. And then we started making smoothies every day together, and we would have like a daily meeting just to kind of like chat about strategies and keep all the, you know, unfortunately there was like a little bit of like grouping off in the folks that were helping, like and her and I worked really hard to keep people communicating and mixed together so that there wasn't like people kind of naturally splitting up into like little segments, which like we're taught to do in the rest of the culture. We're trying to keep people more together. So her and I were working pretty hard on that, and then we just became really good friends and kept that friendship since then.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's so inspiring. Yeah, she's incredible.
I was going to ask, if there must be like a few organizations that are helping with sea turtles during the laying and hatching season. Do you find it easy to collaborate or find volunteers?
Yeah, definitely. Like what I've been doing is I haven't had like a project that was run by like through Proyecto Huella. They've just been helping an existing project and learning. So yeah, there's quite a few. There's Latin American sea turtles. There's they were working closely with I'm embarrassed. I'm blanking on his name, but the Jairo was this man who was running a project on the Caribbean side in a really dangerous area to do anti-poaching work, and he was the person who was killed. I don't know if you heard about that. He was murdered a year and a half ago because there were people who were unhappy with what he was doing with the turtle projects. So there's those folks that work in that area, and then Sea Shepherd's going to be there. They were there last year, and they're going to be there this season. This nesting season starts pretty full on in July, and I know they're planning on being over on the Caribbean side of Costa Rica. But this coming year for me, I'm going to start a project in an area where there hasn't been one in Nicaragua. So I'll be kind of on my own with a handful of volunteers, doing the best we can to get a new project started. But yeah, there's quite a few. I think there's at least 15 or so like really solid projects just in Costa Rica alone. I know a few in Nicaragua as well. So, and there's a lot of people. For me, with the volunteer situation, you meet a lot of people who are traveling and find out that there's something they can do to help for a couple of days, and they're super willing to lend a hand for a few days. So that's where I get most of the volunteers on my project. But now I'm starting to reach out and develop a program for volunteers to have people come down for a few weeks or a month at a time. And there's a lot of folks doing it. Of course, there needs to be more, and there's not enough volunteers. So
what does it entail? Like what do you guys like? What does guarding the nest actually entail doing?
Okay, yeah, it's cool. It's like as far as animal conservation work and working with wild animals, it's one of the most efficient types of projects I've ever worked on. It's so cool. You can make such an impact and with so little resources and never hold the animal in captivity like longer than 15 or 20 minutes after they hatch. Never disturbing the adults, never having to struggle to figure out how or what to feed the animals properly. It's really efficient as far as all that goes. But what it entails is there'll be a patrol section of the project that will monitor a certain stretch of beach. In Montezuma, we do a kilometer of the beach along the main beach, one of the main beaches in the town. And so we'll patrol pretty much from sunset to sunrise when the tides are right. And then while we're patrolling, we're looking for females that are nesting. And so either we find them coming to look to do a nest, and then we hide and let them pick their spot and start digging, or we find them already digging, or we find a nest that's already been dug and buried and then the adult has left. So when we find a nest, we'll let the turtle either finish or if it's finished, we dig the eggs. We dig them up out of the spot where they put them, and then we bring them to an area that's like a fenced off area that we protect. So that's our hatchery or our vivero, and that's guarded 24 hours a day. It's monitored every 15 or 20 minutes for hatchlings. So as soon as the hatchlings come out, we know within a few minutes. We take a few measurements in weight measurements off of a few of the first hatchlings for every nest, and then they're just immediately released under protected conditions as well, where we stand guard to keep birds and dogs and other animals away. So that's basically what the projects do.
So what is the goal of the poachers? Like, what are they actually using the turtles for?
Well, mostly it's the eggs. The eggs have value. You can sell them it's illegal in all the Central and South American countries, I believe worldwide, it's illegal to dig. In Costa Rica, it's legal for like a couple of periods a year when like literally tens of thousands of turtles nest at one time on one particular beach, and it's legal to dig the first few up because they say that they get trampled anyway. Excuse me, by the next like 10,000 that will come through. But what that does is that allows a window for there to be eggs for sale all the time because everyone just claims that they come from that legal time period.
Okay.
So it's the eggs mostly that people are after. I have heard, people do take the adults if they find them too to cut them up for meat, but there's not so much of a resale market for that. That's just sort of an old standing tradition, and they used to be viewed as a sustainable food source because the numbers were so high. They come in like there's times when they come in thousands and tens of thousands at a time, and they lay 80 to 100 eggs at a time. But now, because of climate shifting and because of people killing the animals and taking the eggs, and also because of plastics and pollution and whatever other things that are shifting, the populations are down. So now if you're taking a few eggs, you greatly affect endangered populations. So 6 of the 7 ocean turtle species are endangered species, and you need 10,000 eggs to hatch for there to be an adult 15 years later.
Jesus.
Yeah. So because they're very vulnerable in the egg stage when they're buried, everything's trying to eat them, and now of course people on a large scale. So back to your original question. It's my friends are doing some dishes. That's what the noise. That's okay.
No.
We love you. My friends are awesome. They let me stay in their house, and they're so cute.
We love them too.
Yeah, they love you too. They're super rad folks. I'm blessed to have a couch to sleep on when I'm in the States. And I'll settle for some. We'll take some dish noise in the background. It's okay. We love you. But so yeah, back to your first question. Sorry, I went on and on away from your question, but the main thing folks are after are the eggs and occasionally the adults to butcher for the meat, but mostly the eggs. In the local markets, you can find eggs for sale, and it's sad because it's like $1 for like 10 eggs or 15 eggs, and so it's a very small amount of money. So we could offset that if we had another way to something else to offer to just bring that tiny bit of income in. So we're thinking in those terms when we do these projects. But if you can get them out of Central America and into other markets like the U.S., Europe, or Southeast Asia, like there's it can become a very expensive, very high priced gourmet exotic food source. Unfortunately, there's folks who want to brag that they've eaten something that no one else has ever eaten, or they want to brag that they paid like $500 for something that they ate one time, so that's why there's motivation sometimes on a larger scale for people to take the eggs.
I would just feel like a douchebag if I ate something for $500.
I know, right? I don't understand. I don't understand the mentality to be able to brag about how much you paid for something that's of an endangered species. I don't get how there's bragging rights there at all. But there is that element of some of our fellow humans.
How do the different governments in the areas deal with the endangered status and some of the illegal activity that goes on?
There's very good laws. There's very strict laws in all of the Central and South American countries. Costa Rica takes it very seriously. If you get caught, you can get in some pretty serious trouble, especially smuggling. If you get caught trying to export eggs, trying to cross a border. It's pretty serious. They take it they treat it as serious as a lot of the controlled substances and drugs and things like that. So there's that, but there's also there's not a lot of authority around. So that's the biggest problem. And I'm not really an advocate for more laws are going to solve the problem anyway. We need it's not what we need. We need community strength, and we need morality, and we need responsibility. And but there are the laws in place, so that's a thing that can help sometimes, and that's a leveraging tool that I can use if I'm confronting somebody who's digging up the eggs. Is I'll pretend to video them, and I don't even really video because I'm not ever going to call a cop, and I'm never going to turn video into a cop. I'm not going to work with them, whether they're Costa Rican police or Long Beach or LAPD or whatever. So but it's a good leveraging point. Like I can pretend a video, and they're like, "Well, what's the video for?" And I said, "Well, it's for the federal authorities. It's for the cops, and because what you're doing is federally illegal." And they're like, "Oh," and a lot of times they'll just walk away, and it's very easy. So the laws are there and they're known, but there's just they're not around, which is awesome. Like in most cases, it's great. I like the little town I was living in just outside of Montezuma, like a few kilometers even more remote than Montezuma, Costa Rica. We saw police in the town in the course of like 2 years, like 3 times, which is like, that's awesome. But as far as enforcing federal endangered species laws, like there's the biggest problem with that is there's no enforcement. The only real enforcement is, the grassroots groups on the ground doing it. So that's why the projects are so important.
Do the police forces there kind of view activists as the enemy like they do here in America and Canada?
No, not really. Like my biggest experience with that is in Costa Rica. So it's really the only one I can speak on the most. I haven't really seen like protest rallies and things like that in Nicaragua. My time that I've spent in Nicaragua has been outside of the larger cities. So I don't really know what that dynamic is like there. But in Costa Rica, like there's like this rad element of there's a group called Frente Resistencia Animales y Tierra, and so it's like the resistance front for animals in the earth, and like there's a bunch of rad punk kids, and they're all vegans, and they protest the zoo, and they protest the vivisection labs, and they're viewed as like hooligans, but not like domestic terrorists like here. Like, it's like maybe what 40 or 50, no, not even, like even further back, like it's like going back in time here a long time ago. The relationship with the police, their authority is a lot softer there. A lot of times you can just simply like say like no. Like they're like, we need you to do this, and you're just like, nah, and then they're like, oh well, we don't know what to do next. So it's totally different. And then like in the smaller towns, when they come around, for me personally, like I have this privilege, again, this station of privilege that allows me, like I'm a dynamic that they don't want press or word about like being messed with, right? Like a tourist who appears to be, potentially income for the country or whatever, like blonde and blue eyes or whatever, and like I'm almost invisible to them sometimes. So like I take advantage of that in really really socially positive ways rather than abusing that, of course. But like advice that was told to me was when they if they ever come to ask me questions or whatever, is just completely stick to English, and they become super frustrated and walk away. You don't even tell them that you can't speak Spanish in Spanish. Like you stick to totally English without an accent as much as you can, and then they get super frustrated and leave you alone. So it works really well for me. But as far as the local kids that are doing the activism in the big cities, like they do face They don't get arrested a lot. They get scooped up and driven away in a truck, and kind of like 3 blocks around the corner, they get beaten up a little and then tossed. And I'm not like demeaning that, how terrible that is. Like that sucks, but it's different than here for sure.
Mm-hmm. Earlier you were talking about the food sharing programs that you started. Like, Jesus Christ, you just do fucking everything, right?
Well, no, but I mean, as much as I can. I have a lot of energy and I have good health and I have a job that's pretty solid and I don't have to work at it all the time. So I do some shit, but yeah.
Would you mind like going into that food sharing program you were talking about? Yeah,
Food Not Bombs has always been like something that I try to be involved with whenever I'm around. There's the Food Not Bombs Long Beach, and they're super rad. And I used to work really closely with a group of younger kids in San Clemente that had like a regular ongoing one. They're everywhere. So whenever I'm traveling, it's like something I always keep my eye out for. 'Cause access to healthy food it shouldn't be a privilege. Mm-hmm. It's a basic thing that, the fact that there's all this food in the garbage and people are paying, for like 6 times the price of a meal for just one fancy meal rather than, 6 people eating decent food. it's really heartbreaking. So it's something it means a lot to me, and I always try to do a little something along the way. And so as far as when we're doing the turtle work, if we have extra volunteers, or if it's just, a lot of times it's just me, like me and somebody I'm traveling with, or even just me. When I'm in Nicaragua, I'll get a hostel room in like this larger town that I'm near, sometimes called San Juan del Sur, and I can get a hostel room for like between like $5 or $10 a night, and then that gives me access to a kitchen. And then I go out in the street and I just ask. I pick a few folks who speak English and who look like they're traveling and might have a few dollars to spare, and I show them some pictures on like my iPod or whatever of like the food shares we've done in the past, and I explain to them that with $10 we can do 30 meals, and it's pretty easy to round up like $30 in like an hour or less, and then and being honest, I'm not just down there working. I believe in self-care, and I play, and what I do to enjoy life is one of my favorite things is to surf. So I'll surf all day and then walk the street and talk to a few folks about donating a few dollars, and then go cook this huge pot of lentils and rice. It takes me like an hour, and then go out, and like over the next hour and serve it. And there's a lot of folks who are really, really in need. So it makes me really happy to be able to do that, and it's really important to me. Like Keith McHenry is one of the most inspirational figures in my like activism life. Yeah, I don't know if I think I've lost hearing you again. Sorry.
Can you hear us?
I got you. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, no, yeah. No, I'm just inspired. You're totally right. Like, you got to take care of yourself, and that's so super important. Otherwise, you just burn out on doing everything else. Yeah. But it's inspiring to be like, yeah, I have my fucking fun, but I'm also getting out there and doing what I can when I can.
Yeah.
If more people just did like a tenth of that.
Yeah, it's frustrating, as you all know. You have like experience, working as in the activism realm. Like sometimes it gets really frustrating because you're like, man, if everyone was just doing a little bit, like we all could be having so much more fun and enjoying our lives, which is what closer to the way I feel like the way things are more right, but instead you have a handful of people working really hard and risking their well-being or risking their stability but yeah, I've approached burnout a few times. I've been doing this kinds of work for a long time, and I've had ups and downs, and just before I moved to Central America, I was facing some pretty serious burnout feelings, and I just, really focus on making sure to take a step back now and then and remember that, like, we deserve to be happy. Everybody does. Everybody, yeah. Non-humans, humans, whatever human, like that's really what it all boils down to, is we deserve the chance to be happy. And so I try to make sure I give myself space for that.
You mentioned that you've had encounters with people who were maybe trying to dig up the eggs and stuff like that. Have you ever had any super bad encounters?
No, I've been really fortunate where it's just a matter of like no confrontations, really, just coming up and explaining the situation. You try to approach very gently and control the sort of the energy of the interaction, and just be a little more like, hey, just wanted to let you know that this is a protected beach, and that the turtle eggs are federally protected, and you shouldn't really be digging them up, and we protect them here on this beach. And usually that's enough. Oh really? And then if there's like any kind of standoffishness, then I pull out the fake video trick, and that usually does it. So I've been fortunate, but I mean there are conflicts, there are times when that happens, but personally I don't have any stories. The one time, the closest to any confrontation I've had in that realm was like right in front of our vivero in Montezuma one evening. This guy, and like all of a sudden we see like we have all these things we watch out for, and when we see like flashlights hovering around in one spot, we were like, okay, there's something going on. Like, why are they there? It's probably a turtle. So that's one of the things we look for. So I see this flashlight kind of hovering around, and it's like it's just a couple hundred yards away from our actual like hatchery, like right within view. And I see him drop to his knees and start digging, and I'm just like, whoa, he's digging eggs up right there. And I went running out in the middle of the night. It was probably 2 a.m, and came up to him and was like, "Hey, sir," they all in Spanish, like, please stop what you're doing. These eggs are federally protected. And he was very startled and like I saw him he was putting the eggs into a t-shirt, and he just like handed me the t-shirt full of the eggs, and then I was like, well, hold on, I needed to get some gloves, and we try to not contaminate the eggs with our own whatever could be on our hands, and the t-shirt was already a risk because of like sweat from bacteria. But anyway, he turned out to be a biology student from like a college in one of the main cities, and he came over. We were like, we have a project right here. You should come help us. If you want to dig the nest, you can redig the eggs for us. And if you like the experience, like we ended up becoming like very friendly. But then he told the people I was working with, was like, wow, he terrified me. Like he came running out of and scared the crap out. And I felt bad because I wasn't even really trying to do that. But that's the closest I have. Where we're going in Nicaragua, it's southern Nicaragua, and it's known to be more peaceful. And I'm trying to, I'm setting if we have the chance to forecast or whatever realm of like setting intentions you believe in, like I'm just trying to keep thoughts of like, well, let's just expect the best, like let's prepare for the worst, but let's go in with the idea that it's going to be very easy and very peaceful, and we'll make a lot of positive changes in the area, and we'll through the other social justice programs, we'll make a lot of allies and do a lot of really good solidarity work. But it could possibly be confrontational, so we are working on being prepared for making sure everybody stays safe.
So what's your origin? Like, what brought you to veganism, to animal rights, to activism in general?
Well, I became vegan, like all of it is rooted in punk and straight edge music, like punk and hardcore. And I was in, this like young skater surf punk in Florida. And, I got kind of tired of being around all of my drunk friends in high school. And I started just staying home and staying sober. And then I learned about what straight edge was, and was like, wow, cool. Like sober and a bunch of friends. This is neat. So that was cool. So I was super plugged into that culture. And then there was a point for me around like 92 or so where just this word vegan was popping up everywhere. And I legitimately did not know the difference between vegan and vegetarian at that point, and I wasn't vegetarian. And I asked a friend of mine who was vegan, and he was in the local scene, and one night after a show, I just asked him what the difference was, and that conversation drew on until the sun came up the next morning. And he, like, there wasn't internet then, and there wasn't like Meet Your Meat wasn't there. He had some old videotape that he put in and showed me like some footage. I don't even know like what group it was from or where the footage was from, but anyhow, after that conversation, I've been vegan since that conversation. As far as wanting to get active, the same person that talked to me about vegan ideals he talked a lot about just actions that happen and direct action, things that were happening, and then just historically, and then I'm not making a claim that he was talking about shit that was happening right then, just to be clear. Just historical stuff, and I was like, wow, this happens, this is cool. And and then as far as activity goes, there was that's why Food Not Bombs is another element that's so important to me, because there was a crew of like these vegan straight edge kids in Tampa, Florida, and they would come over to the East Coast where I was living, and they would be at shows, and they would always do Food Not Bombs servings, and they were just so politically aware and just so rad, and they inspired me so much. And then there was an event where Keith McHenry came and talked, and he had this one part where he basically said, like, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was basically like, well, they told us that if we went and fed these hungry people, we were going to get arrested. And so we went and fed the hungry people because that was the right thing to do. And I was just like, wow, like, yeah, like sometimes when the cops say this is what you should do, or when teachers or whoever else, whatever authority figure is like, this is what you have to do. It's not, if it doesn't feel right and it isn't just, you don't necessarily have to listen to them. And so that changed a lot of things for me. And so yeah, and I've just been involved with wherever I was living, the groups, lots of Food Not Bombs, and lots of the Shack campaign work, lots of the Bunny Alliance stuff. We had this Open the Cages tour, and then I've been in and out of a couple of bands that were like, very outspoken about vegan straight edge and action and things like that. And then of course, like for me, the veganism isn't the only important element. Environment. I called myself an environmentalist when I was like 10. I used to want to go on a Greenpeace boat and stuff. And when I got a little older, it switched to Sea Shepherd. But so I've always been like, just, my heart's in environmental defense and animal and ecosystem defense, as well as social justice. And I've always had the ability to have some spare time. I haven't ever been starving myself, so I just find what's going on and help folks. And then this time, this Proyecto Huella is like the first time where I felt like, okay, I'm going to start a project and turn to other folks and ask for help, rather than I've always just kind of stepped in and done what I could with what other folks were doing. And now it's a little different for me now.
What were some of like the influential music you were talking about? You're talking about the punk hardcore scene, like that early 90s is like right when a huge, uptick in vegan hardcore came out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like of course, like as all the mid 90s bands were first starting in like the early 90s, like so like Chokehold was around, but even before that, for me it was like Bad Religion was such an amazing perspective. Like just I would listen to their, like, I'd get a new album or a chance to hear new songs and literally sit with the dictionary and look up what the hell they were talking about. And I feel like looking back, I'm so grateful for that. It helped me so much just with my just broadening my awareness. And then Operation Ivy and Minor Threat, of course, like bands like that were just so like we're punk and we're angry and we're screaming about stuff, but like we care about stuff and we get things done. And those were the bands, like those were the major ones. Like for me, it was Bad Religion, Operation Ivy, Minor Threat, like at first, and then as like around the time when I was becoming vegan, it was like the first tours of Chokehold and Snapcase and Earth Crisis and all those guys. And I actually I wasn't a huge fan the first time I saw Earth Crisis play. I was like, what is this weird music? Like, why? I didn't even stay and watch the rest of their set. But then later I heard about what they were saying and the lyrics. And I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. And like, it was the first show that there was like spin kicking and people getting kicked in the face and stuff. And I was just kind of like, I don't know what's going on here. I don't like this. But, and then just tuning into those kinds of bands.
I had the exact opposite effect with Earth Crisis. I saw them when they were opening up for Downset. I'm like, this has fucking changed my world. Like,
that's hilarious. Yeah, I have a probably shouldn't say this in a public arena. I have a kind of an unpopular opinion about a lot of Earth Crisis's music. That's not my favorite, but. But of course, I respect their value in the culture and what they've said, and that they're still true, and like that's super rad, But
I mean, I will give it to you. Slither is fucking horrible.
Slither's pretty bad.
What was that? I missed what you said.
Their album Slither, it's fucking horrible.
Yeah, they've had ups and downs, that's for sure.
That is for sure. But yeah, I don't know. For me, they were very influential, very young for me. Like them going like Green Rage. I fucking love Green Rage. Chokehold, like you mentioned. Yeah. I love that stuff. But and
it's like in looking back at those times too, like there was a guy, I don't even want to say his name. He's but this guy who was living in Southern California, and I don't want to say his name because he turned out to be like informant level, really awful type of person, and I just don't even want to speak his name. But he did some research back before all this bad, information came out about him, where every time there's a peak in like vegan straight edge hardcore, there's a peak in like underground communicate actions. He looked. There's like 3 spikes, and they're all correlative to Green Rage. And like the Earth Crisis heyday, and then like the mid 2000s heyday of some of the vegan straight edge bands, and that makes me really happy to know that that it's not for it's that music scene and that culture isn't worthless. It actually does inspire something, and a lot of people have done a lot of really positive things in their life through what those guys are yelling about. So that's pretty rad.
I could totally see that correlation.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, because honestly, it's what inspired me to get from being vegan to being an activist, like taking the step forward. Because I was vegan long before I was an actual activist. Yeah.
Right.
But how can people follow your work and support you guys and even volunteer if they're able to?
Okay. Yeah, I'm working on being more organized at that. It's something is new to me, like having a website, and I'm developing like sort of the plan. My schedule is so unpredictable generally, like, and I've spent since I was like 12. I spend a lot of energy dodging responsibility and commitment. So to like commit to like volunteers coming down, but I'm really working on the schedule. So I'll have information out really soon about what the volunteer program is going to look like and what people can do. And it's going to be very loose and open. Like, if you can afford to get yourself down there and you can keep yourself fed while you're there, then come on down and we'll get some amazing things done. And we'll also take a minute to jump off a waterfall and go for a surf and enjoy the beauty that's around us as well. So it's going to be really cool. I'm never going to ask people to pay to volunteer. There's a lot of in Costa Rica, especially because of ecotourism, there's a lot of sanctuaries and programs and turtle projects and things that you have to pay like a daily fee to just even help them out. And I don't really like that dynamic. So it's going to be a very easy program. Just like I am going to have like a really strict rule about like the second that I have to spend time or anyone else in the project has to spend time like resolving a conflict that you brought, we're just going to have to ask you to leave because we don't have time for that. Like, we need to get out there and do the work, and we'll be nice about it, but we're going to ask you to go if you're bringing drama. But otherwise, so I have a website up. It's proyectohuella.org, and it's project footprint in Spanish, but it's Proyecto is Proyecto, and then Huella is HUELLA, and then .org. And then if you add the word action to the end of that, in English, the word action is the Facebook profile. So those are how to find it. The website is, I'm still building it. I don't have the patience to sit and build it as much as I should. So there's a lot more going on than is talked about on the website. But people can message me right through the website, or there's an email that's proyectohuella.tim@gmail.com. You can message me there. I'll be very active in July through into next year on turtle projects, but we're also doing the beach cleanup and the coastal rehabilitation, and then we'll always have as much of the food share program going, and then all kinds of other social justice realms pop up along the way that we end up getting involved into. And if people also have ideas or know things that we could do and help out with, we're open to hearing from other folks too. So yeah.
Well, sweet. We'll put that all in the show notes for everyone too.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
And we end every episode saying "fuck, shit, damn." Would you mind saying it for us this week?
Fuck, shit, damn.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay. Have a good weekend.
Thanks for doing what y'all do.
Yeah, no, thank you. What you do. This week you heard
Lockheed by Tone.
Right now you're listening to
Open Me Slowly by Rena Jones.
iTunes. We say this every week. Go rate and review us. If you have, high five. If you do it again under a ghost review, double high five. If you haven't,
low five.
Or I'm going to pull away really quickly. No five.
No. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking something totally different. All good.
Okay. But please go do it. It sincerely helps out the show so much.
All you have to do is rate and review. I don't know.
All
you have to do is rate and review.
That is all you have to do. That is so true.
It's a good one. All you have to do is rate and review.
All you have to do is rate and review.
Trademark. Hashtag ghost review. If you haven't yet, we are on the social medias. You can like us, be our friend, whatever the social media equivalent of those things are, do it. We often talk about things on social media that we don't talk about on the show, which is like on a daily basis.
Yeah, by often it's every day.
So if you're not friends with us yet, if you're not liking us or following us yet, do it.
Whichsidepodcast.com.
Click on the social tab.
Is it the fuck shit damn now?
I think so.
Okay. Fuck shit damn.
That thing.
Which Side Podcast is hosted and produced by Jordan Halliday and Jeremy Parkin of the Which Side Media Collective, with web design by Jordan Halliday and sound design by Jeremy Parkin. Booking by Mari Halliday. Theme music by Commandantes. Go to whichsidecollective.org to check out the other shows in the collective. As always, fuck shit damn.